Now let's take a look at Python tuples. Open up a new Colab notebook. Some people call them tuples. I call them tuples. You call them, it's up to you. I believe tuples is correct. I prefer tuples. Okay, so what is a tuple? We've actually seen them before. They're commonly used for, say, points, and they use parentheses. So maybe you have coordinate points 2, 3, like an x comma y, and here's the second point, and maybe that has, -1 and 0 as the coordinates. Okay, so those are stored as tuples. Let's press Shift Enter to actually store them. Tuples are a lot like lists, okay, but there are some key differences. So first of all, let's check the type. So the type of P1, you can see you get the result tuple. Now, what is the difference between a list and a tuple? They look very similar. Well, let's try the dot here. There's not a lot there, right? And the idea is they're supposed to be immutable, which means unchangeable. So when you want to use like something that's unchangeable, well, how about this? Weekdays, presumably you're not going to change those. So it would make sense to store these as a tuple, right? So we've got Monday separated by commas, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Okay, straightforward example. And so if I press Shift Enter to store weekdays, and then you can probably guess, like, well, how would you access the first day of the week? Okay, we have a new data type here. We've actually seen it before with functions when we had more than one output to our function. It was stored as a tuple. And just like with lists and strings, you would index it with the 0. Okay, so that should give us the first element. First day of the week is Monday. And we can check, will the negative indexing also work? Give us the last day of the week. Yes, we here get Friday. Okay, so, in math, this is just sort of, we're used to using parentheses, and so that's why sometimes points are stored as tuples. It'd be fine to store them as lists as well. Here's a fun little problem that could come up. So again, let's convert two points with x and y to 3D. How do you do that? What that means is you need a z coordinate, and a z coordinate could just be 0. So right now, these 2 points, I'll move them down here, are in fact 2-dimensional, but maybe they're supposed to be 3-dimensional. And so the idea is, well, you can't append, okay? Tuple, you can't do that. Okay, you could try, right? P1.append 0 and see what happens. No, tuple has no attribute append. So how could you do that? Well, the clue is in what we can't do. You could actually convert them into a list and then back into a tuple. So we could do something like the following. We could have the list P1. Okay, we convert it into a list. Let's just label that somehow P1 list, right? I've converted it into a list, and the same thing for P2. So we convert P2 into a list, and this will do it. And now we can actually add to them, right? We can append our lists. So we can do P1 list dot append 0, could be another coordinate, P1 P2 list dot append 0. If you have a 0, by the way, you need that to make it a 3-dimensional point. Okay, it's not the same thing to have nothing there and to have a 0 there in coordinate geometry. So comment this out, the code that doesn't work. Now that they've been appended to 3-dimensional, we can go back now, we can reassign them as tuples using the keyword tuple. And so we're converting it basically from a tuple to a list back to a tuple. And we'll check this by printing them out. Okay? P1, P2 list, and let's do, in fact, print them out to verify. And this is sort of a lot of work. And it's also kind of why, in general, If you're not sure, just use a list, because if these were lists, right, it's just one line of code. But if you have to go back and fix tuples, hey, this is an issue. You can reassign values, right? So we're reassigning them here. To be unchangeable means that you can't like add on to it. You can't append them. Okay, so this is somewhat systematic. Let's see what we get. We can see now we have three-dimensional points, 2, 3, 0, -1, 0, 0. And there you have it. So you can think of some creative uses for tuples, like things that will never change, probably, like the days of the week. Importantly, like in your code, things that cannot change. So somebody could not change this, right? Like if these points were designed to be unchangeable in your code, by all means store them as a tuple. But if maybe they could be changed later, right, like we just saw, well, maybe storing them as a list first is in fact better.